Hello, today we are going to be talking about creating a custom assessment. That means you want to put your own questions into a test or take other people's questions and put them into your own personal test instead of using one that someone has already made. So we're starting again here at our dashboard. From here, there's a couple ways to go, but I like to go over here to test. And this is where we went last time to find tests that were already pre-made, but this time we want to make our own. So we are going to go up to the right-hand corner and create and click New Test. You can do this snap quiz from PDF, but today I'm going to focus on creating one from scratch. So you can click any of these buttons here to go and start making one from scratch. The first thing they start you off with is the description. So you can change the picture here if you want to upload a picture or find one from one of Edulastic's already created libraries. That's an option. Here is where you're going to enter the test name, whatever you want to call it, like practice or final assessment, whatever your test name is going to be. Here you can put a description for you to remember later. If you're like, man, I had so many integer ones, I don't remember what it is. Maybe you'd be like the first 2 lessons review or whatever you want to put on there. You would need to select a grade level that it's for. You can, again, select multiple if this is a multi-grade level type assessment. You can click what subject you are using. And again, the tags are just kind of an easy way for you to search for it later. So maybe you want to put integer so that you remember later, okay, that was one of my integer tests, whatever you kind of want to put there. All right. Now that we have our description down, we can go back up here to the top, and these are the tabs that we need to complete before we do the assessment. Doing them in order is ideal. So the first thing we're going to do is add some items. Now, in some later videos, we are going to talk about authoring items and how to make your own. But for right now, we're just going to pretend that I just want to pick items that other people have already made. So again, you can use the filters that we've talked about before over here to the side where you can change it to have a standard set so that you don't have to look at 13,000, this is even Missouri, 13,000 Missouri questions that you don't need. You can just look at the standards that you want. Then that will show up, and now I'm to 23. That's a lot less for me to look at. Then again, you can add some more question types, depth of knowledge, et cetera, et cetera. So let's just pretend that I'm not really sure if I like this question, so I want to see what it looks like first. So before I click add it to my test, I'm going to click this I button here, and this will pop up what the question looks like on the test. And it also gives me some more details of like the depth of knowledge and the difficulty and stuff like that. And I can even try and answer the question myself and see if the correct answer is in there to make sure that it's coded correctly before I like it. And I say, you know what, I want to add that one. Once you've added it, then if you didn't notice, it's popped some work up here that it got added and my work is saved as a draft. And a bunch of other options popped up here. Now that there's a question in my test, some other stuff popped up. I am going to try and let me look at this one. It says the word image a lot. Oh, so it's got some counters on it. Once I clicked the I could see it had some counters. You know what? I kind of like that one. I want to add, oh, look, I could have added it from that screen right here, add to test. So that's nice that you didn't have to go back to the screen we were at before to add it if you really liked it. This one, this looks interesting. Let's see. This has got 2 parts. At first, I have to collect the right response, and then I have to explain why. So I kind of like that one if you wanted to add that to your test. I'm just trying to get a variety here for my students and for you guys to kind of see. Let's see. Ooh, this is cool. Drag the expression into the correct category. So I would have to like drag these. These are same signs. These are same signs. et cetera, et cetera. That's what the kids would have to do. I like that one. I'm going to add that to my test. And again, you can keep going for as many questions as you want, as little as you want, whatever your goal is here for your assessment. Of course, you would just keep adding whatever was appropriate for you. So we're going to pretend that I'm good with this. This is as many questions as I want. If you, sometimes as I'm adding questions, I lose track of how many I've done. And when you look back here at the top, it does say 8 selected. And again, if you're ever interested in creating your own item, that's where this box is at as well. We're going to pretend for the sake of this video that I am good with that, and that's all I want to do. So now I can go to this review tab right here. And this is going to kind of give me a general overview of my entire test. So I can see all of the questions that I've selected here in case I forgot or I accidentally clicked one twice. I would know that I accidentally did that. I can also see over to the side, here's a picture that they picked for me. I still have grade 7 in math in case I need to fix any of that stuff. Over here's a nice summary that I have 8 questions, but they are worth 18 points because it looks like this standard has 8 questions with 18 points. This has 2 questions under it, 1 and 1. And that's kind of confusing because I have 8 questions total, so I have more. How do I have 8 questions total, but really looks like a lot more over here? Well, it looks like this question had several standards attached to it, and this one had several standards attached to it. So that's how they got more than one, more questions over here off to the side. It does look like there's 18 total points, so that means some are worth more than 1. So if you look here, it looks like this question is worth 2, and if you remember, that's the one we already looked at that had 2 different parts to it, so that means they're doing 1 point for this and 1 point for this, and I'm good with that, so I'll leave that. But this one was worth 7 points, so let me look at that one again and see what that was. All right, that was this one where they just had to drag them over. You know what? 7 points is a lot of the test. I'm not sure I want it worth that much, so I'm going to decrease it to maybe 3.5. Then they would get a half point for each answer. So that means now I have 8 questions that is 14.5 points. I'm looking down here, and this one is also worth 4. Let's look at what that question is. Oh, that was dragging and dropping the answer. You know what? I'm okay with that one being 4 because that's what I'm really testing is if they know the answers to that. So I'm going to leave that one as 4 points, but you could change that again. Any of these things here, like the heart button, that would be like, I really like that question. I want to save that for later. This is a text to speech. This is how many people have shared it and just some codes. And here's the names of the people that have originally authored those items. So let's say, you know what, I'm like, I kind of want this category 1 first because it's kind of a lower DOK to me. You just put them in the right box. I'm going to start that off to get the kids warmed up. So if you didn't notice, I just kind of clicked and held down this moving arrows here and just I drug it to the top. And now it renumbered my test for me. Now this is question 1. And you can do that with any and all of them, moving them around to the order that you want them in. So if you also had a question you didn't want, here's the delete button, and this just kind of puts it in full screen for you, just kind of different version of the preview. It just doesn't pop up a new screen, but it's kind of the same thing, and this one gives you the answers with it, whereas the preview is more like looking at it as a student. So we'll get rid of that. Again, up here, there's some options for removing some. If you would click this here, you could remove several of them at a time or move several of them at a time and stuff like that. That's kind of what these are for, is doing this to multiple questions. If you think you're ready and you like this test, you can click here to view the entire thing as a student, as if you were taking it, which I might suggest, especially if you haven't looked at all the questions, making sure that these is the order that you like them in, that this is, you know, what you wanted, and that everything's showing up properly. Then when you are ready to give the test, you can go to these settings. These settings are very much like the settings that will happen when you click the assign button, but you could go ahead and do them right here with the class assessment. These, I'm not going to go over these in depth because these were in my original video on assigning assessments. So if you need help with these, look back at that video. So you could change some of the settings here when it is given to the students. So you could change those settings ahead of time before you actually assigned it to them, or you could just change that later when you assigned it to them as well. But these are all the same settings that we saw in that assigning assessments video. So now that I'm done and I'm ready to go, there are some options here. I can print this test. So maybe I want to print it and look at it by hand. I can print the whole test or just the items that the students had to write on. Or this custom would be like, you know what, I really want them to show work on 3, 4, and 5. So I only want to print those, but not the whole thing. Those would be the options there for printing that. This share, of course, is to share it with other people. Maybe I have a co-teacher or a special education teacher that's in my room that I want to share it with and make sure they don't have any feedback on it. I could invite them to be co-authors. That means that they could edit it and actually do all of the actions that I could do. Or I could put them as limited actions, which just means they can look at it and assign it. So whatever works best for your situation. I can also completely delete the test if I don't like anything that it's doing. If you are like, you know what, I want to save and come back to this later, or my plan time ran out, you can click save as draft and it will just save it where it's at. You can't give it in draft form. You can share it with your co-authors in draft form, but it's just basically like saving it. So you will have to actually go over here and publish it to be able to assign it. So let's say I'm done with this test, but I'm not giving it for another 2 weeks. I just want to publish it and assign it later. I would click this button. So it would be published, ready to go, but I'm not ready to assign it. If you are ready to go, you're like giving this test tomorrow, it's done, you can go ahead and click the assign, and then that will bring you to all of the steps again of all of those options that we just went through. If you did those on the last page, they should be the same here, and then you could go ahead and push assign. So that is kind of the rundown of creating your own custom test.